Ladies and gentlemen, it was our privilege on this island of Portland to witness an episode unique in the story of the British and American people, namely the launching from our harbor of the major portion of the American assault force on D-Day, June the 6th, 1944, and the embarking of 418,585 troops and 144,093 vehicles from D-Day until May the 7th, 1945. That future generations on both sides of the Atlantic shall remember this historic fact. A memorial has been erected on which, in metal, cast to the order of the United States Army authorities, the details of the great adventure are recorded. The memorial stands on a site past which a gigantic procession of men, tanks, trucks, guns, and engines of war, terrible to behold, rumbled unceasingly on the road to the ship and to victory. None who saw or heard this thing will ever forget. We remain dazed with the magnitude of it all. We marvel at the skill and organizing ability of those whose duty it was to marshal and embark so vast an undertaking. We rejoice, therefore, to have with us on this platform this afternoon the American officers who were responsible for so great an achievement.
Mr. Chairman, soldiers of the Army, ladies and gentlemen, may I begin by thanking you for asking me to be with you on this great occasion. In the 24 hours beginning June 6, 1944, 250,000 Allied soldiers landed in France from the United Kingdom. Mr. Churchill, on that famous day, was able to announce in Parliament, everything is proceeding according to plan. Then he added, and what a plan. Already it is hard to remember the anxieties of those days. Victory, in retrospect, seems to have been inevitable. But it was not inevitable to the men who left your harbor on that summer morning. On the contrary, it was almost unimaginable that the fortress of Europe could be stormed successfully from the sea. It was thought to be impossible by the Germans. It was known by our own command that the cost might be grievous. The mood of the hour, of what he called this poignant hour, was expressed by President Roosevelt in his D-Day prayer. Almighty God, our sons, pride of our nation, this day hath set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity. Their road will be long and hard. The enemy is strong. He may hail back our forces. Success may not come with rushing speed, but we shall return again and again. And we know that by thy grace and by the righteousness of our cause, our sons will triumph. They did triumph, accomplishing more than could be expected of men. The Allied armies fulfilled exactly the instructions of General Eisenhower's order of the day, June 6th. You will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free will. What a plan indeed, and what a course. The words of the poet apply to so many in both nations. The skies that tune their heartstrings right, to fields that bred them brave. The saviors come not home tonight, themselves they could not save. It is right to recall the mood of D-Day, the daring, the anxiety, and the pain. It is right to recall the course of the subsequent battles. We must recall them, not only on a day of dedication such as this, but on all the days of our lives. Because now that the war has ended, we shall find it more difficult.
We shall find it more difficult to be good. And the price of failure is always the same: more slaughter, more young men keeping an early rendezvous with death. It was relatively easy to be unselfish during the war, relatively easy to honour and respect our allies and to work loyally and in the common cause. War supplied us with a moral directive, which we must now apply for ourselves out of our inner resources.
Today and forever in the future, our world lives under the sword of Damocles. We have at last learned how to destroy all life upon this planet. We also know what we must do to avert such destruction.
The moral problem which was posed in that garden where the world began, where man first tasted the tree of knowledge, must now be settled once and for all. We have uncovered the last secret of nature, and our power for destruction has become absolute. We must learn one more secret, a moral secret this time, before we can use this dynamic power for good. We must learn how to live together in friendship. No other problem is important today. If we fail here, we fail everywhere. In the war, we developed the idea of mutual aid, the idea that each ally must put everything it had into a common pool, and that nobody would bother whether one contribution was larger or smaller than another, so long as every contribution was everything. If we are to survive, we must carry that idea into the future. We must become a team of friends in peacetime as we have been a team of friends in war. Nothing less will suffice. Nothing less would have sufficed on D-Day. Only in that spirit of dedication which we are now commemorating can the world be saved. The soldiers who went out on June the 6th, the pride of our nations, did exactly what their general asked them to do. Many of us were sad that we could do so little to help them. We had to sit quietly and let them save us. But now each one of us can do the hardest thing of all, or by refusing we can betray the men who fought. Each one of us can dedicate our lives to the knowledge that we must live as citizens of a world that will either be united or dead. It means changing many habits. It means guarding our tongues and our passions and even our gestures. It means acting as if the welfare of our neighbour nation is as important as the welfare of our own. It is almost impossible, but so was D-Day. If that could be done, anything can be done if we really care. The danger is that we should forget and let old habits overwhelm us. As a recipe against forgetting, there is much virtue in living under the sword of Damocles, but only if we've learned to live as good neighbours.
The moral problem was posed in that God. And now, Mr. Winant, the American ambassador, having made his speech, he has walked over about 50 yards from the dais in this square, Portland, to the foot of Victoria Park in Portland, where he is just about to unveil the memorial stone.
I shall now unveil this plaque in memory of what my countrymen did.
You probably heard through the loudspeaker in the square Mr. Winant saying that he would now unveil the plaque in memory of what his countrymen did. That he is now doing. Here come the cheers for him. And Mr. Winant has drawn back the American and British flags from in front of this stone.
The prayers and blessing were given by the acting rector of Portland, the Reverend J. Phillips. Then two bands played to complete the ceremony. Firstly, the American Marine Band from Southampton, and then the band of the Dorset Regiment, which played the rousing Star-Spangled Banner. The blustery wet weather did nothing to dampen the unique and memorable ceremony. John Winant walked a few paces to rename the adjoining Cadets Road to Victory Road. This was the route to the port. While guests were having tea in the nearby Masonic Hall, the U.S. Army Band played for an hour in the Victoria Gardens, and dancing in the Drill Hall Easton wound up the day. You can tell by the tone of his voice here at Portland that John Winant was rather subdued. He had been a bomber pilot in the First World War and was American ambassador to Britain through the thick of World War II. Against strong resistance back home, he played a critical role in persuading the United States to join Britain in the fight against Nazi Germany. He was hit hard by the death of President Roosevelt just 4 months before his visit to Portland. Winant was a very close friend to Winston Churchill and his family. He was with Churchill when news came of the attack on Pearl Harbour. He'd also been having a deep affair with Winston Churchill's daughter, Sarah. They were both in unhappy marriages, and he desperately wanted to have a future with Sarah, but it was not to be. After he resigned as U.S. Ambassador in 1946, he wanted to stay in the England he had come to love, and he rented a flat in London. With Sarah's love for him cooling, she was after all 25 years his junior, he returned to America depressed and broke. He felt dejected, having failed to become the head of the new United Nations, and on the 3rd of November 1947 he committed suicide. The stigma of his suicide overshadowed the crucial role John Gilbert Winant played in bringing together Great Britain and the USA in World War II. He is now regarded as an American hero. The New York Herald Tribune said of Winant, "He did more than people will ever know to maintain the solidarity of the two great democracies in their hour of desperate need."